this special episode of Because It Matters, we're back at Dublin's iconic Croke Park. Ian Mullally from dormakaba and Séamus Guidera from RKD Architects share how innovation in access and design is transforming the built environment. From smarter door systems to sustainable refurbishments, they reveal why the future of architecture lies in flexibility, inclusivity, and unforgettable user experiences. Join our host, Wilma Werner, as we dive into the world of safe, secure, and seamless access.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Because It Matters, the podcast where we open the doors to innovation, merge aesthetic with function, and security with elegance. And I welcome you to another special episode because we are here in Dublin at the Croke Park. And right by my side are two experts, Séamus Guidera and Ian Mullally. Boy, I practiced those names. You can bet on that. Great to have you here, gentlemen. Ian, you work with dormakaba. Can you please briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, Ian Mullally is my name. I'm the Managing Director of dormakaba Ireland. Next month will be 24 years with dormakaba. And before that, I was a customer of Dorma's for 16 and a half years. So that's all I've ever worked at. And I'm passionate with door hardware, the industry, helping people find the right solutions.
So are you even able to enter a building without noticing that detail about it?
Are you joking?
Yeah.
No. I'm an anorak. I look at everything from door hardware, automatic doors, electronic locks, you name it.
So I love when you have such an eye for such a specific detail. What was one building that comes to your mind and you were like, wow, these door handles are to kneel down for?
I've been in some nice countries with really ornate door handles, but I was in a building there 2 years ago, the old ESB building. It's an old Georgian building in Dublin City where we've installed speed lanes. So it's a lovely old building, but really modern now, and modern access control. So it's exciting.
So whenever you passed by that building, you were like, I did that.
dormakaba.
And Séamus, hi, welcome. Can you please introduce yourself briefly as well?
Absolutely, Wilma. Séamus Guidera is my name, so I'm an architect and the director of the commercial sector in RKD. We're based in Dublin. We have offices right across Europe. We're one of Ireland's largest architecture practices. In the commercial sector, I typically work on offices. So we have a few offices that are on site in Dublin at the moment. We have a similar stadium to the one we're in today, actually, for the RDS in Dublin 4, and a lot of master planning and larger scale infrastructural work as well. So it's a great job. I love being an architect. I've always wanted to be an architect, and it's great to be here today.
I love when I meet people who are like, I always had a plan and I followed the plan and I'm exactly where I wanted to be. So you seem to be one of those.
Nearly, yeah. I always wanted to be an architect, and then I did work experience with an architect, and then I didn't want to be an architect.
Okay, what happened there? That nearly got you off track.
I think I spent a week just making coffee, but then I was glad I came back to it because I do love it. It's a great job.
Do both of you enjoy sports? Are you sports fans?
Séamus.
I've been here a couple of times. I wouldn't be a huge sports fan, but I do love coming to Croke Park, and big match days are fantastic.
You do live in Dublin or close to Dublin?
So it's just outside Dublin, yeah.
So how far is that from here, from Croke Park?
With no traffic, maybe 40 minutes.
40 minutes. How close do you live from here?
When was the last time there was no traffic?
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
I live in the south of the city, so close to Dunleary, by the coast.
And how often have the two of you, not together necessarily, but how often have you been here already?
Croke Park.
Yeah.
The last time I was here probably 15 years ago, shamefully. Yeah.
Now you're back.
I know, now I'm back, and it's amazing to see it. It's the first time I've ever seen Croke Park with no goalposts.
Yeah, they're redoing the lawn. Do you know the story about why they have to redo it?
I don't, no.
You do?
I think I heard something earlier on, but tell us.
There were concerts that took place here. One was Robbie Williams and the other one was Oasis. And now the lawn is a little bit messed up and they're getting everything ready and prepared for the NFL. I learned that here in this stadium they play Gaelic football.
That's it. Yeah,
They
Gaelic
do
football.
hurling as well. Yeah.
And so both is played here. Have you ever attended a match or were you here for the architectural experience?
I was definitely here for the match, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the last time I was here was for a hurling game. And that's, to the untrained eye or for somebody who knows nothing about hurling, it's a wild game, and you need to really have a hard neck to play it because it's very physical and an amazing game to watch.
So maybe you'll be back more often in the future?
Definitely.
Did you ever watch a match here?
I did, yeah. I've been here about 10 times, I'd say. So maybe once every year or two. But I do love the architecture as well. It was designed by Gilroy McMahon, and it's very simple, and it's stood the test of time, in my opinion. It works very well as a stadium, and it's Ireland's largest stadium by quite a bit, I think, as well.
Do you happen to know how many people fit in here?
90,000, I believe.
I would have thought
I don't know, we need to fast
16.
track that.
I would have thought,
Okay, let's
You're
take
asking the wrong man,
guesses.
yeah.
my guess would be 68,000.
68, and yours is?
That sounds too specific. I'm not going to counter my guess here. Yeah.
Do you know the answer?
No, I don't know. I would have to look it up, but I will look it up. So 68, what's your guess?
My guess is 84.
You guess it was 68,000. You said 84,000. And I am looking 82,300. So, ladies and gentlemen, in case you were curious, it's 82,300 people. That's the capacity of Croke Park here in Dublin. Coming back to you, gentlemen. So what is it? So both of you are from the region, from Dublin.
Yes.
What does it mean to you to come into Croke Park?
For me, it's just fantastic to be here on a non-match day because there's so much activity going on within the innards of the stadium, conferences and meetings, and there's a lot that happens in a stadium outside of match days. So great to be here. I've not been here for a non-match in quite a while, so it's great to be back. And a fantastic room we have.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And even the traffic trying to get here, like getting here was so hassle-free, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And even getting into the building, whereas on match day, you just cannot get near the place.
Yeah.
So you're both here from the region, and I mean, this building has been here multiple decades. You now working as an architect, and you built stadiums as well. Did Croke Park have any impact on you to become an architect? You said you always wanted to be an architect.
It genuinely did. Like growing up, it was the first building that I would have had exposure to that was architecture that isn't a house. So I think a lot of the time, especially when we're younger, we think of architecture as fancy houses. But this is pure architecture because it's a building that everybody or most people in Ireland will have visited at one stage in their life. And it's all about people movement, and it's all about taking a bit of a backseat and leaving the match be the real showstopper. The stadium shouldn't be what people are looking at on match day. It should be what's on the field. So I just think it's a really good example of simple, timeless and strong architecture.
What is it that fans that will come here and visit don't notice from an architectural point of view?
For me, it's the quality of the exposed concrete. We can clad concrete and we can put sort of maybe gimmicky things to make a stadium look identifiable. But Croke Park's very pared back. It's really just a skeleton. There's a lot of concrete. It's finished quite well, and it works incredibly well, I think, on match days.
And I wrote, this is a funny, crucial fact, you are a pencil enthusiast.
I am.
You
That's
are
a
the
nice way
first
of putting it.
pencil enthusiast that I meet. So can you give us a short impression of what is it that intrigues you about pencils?
Well, I do. I love pencils and pens. Unfortunately, since the iPad released an Apple Pencil, I've used less pencils. So I had a lot of pencils in college and pens, and I think it's just quite interesting that it's something that historically has been so important for writing. They change massively in terms of the type of lead used and the quality of lead. And I had a pencil blog a couple of years ago. A couple of my favorites might be...
Is it still online?
It is. You'd probably need to do a bit of digging to find it, I'd
Where
say.
can you please shorten the amount of digging that we would have to make? What's the name of the blog? Come on, spill it.
It's called the Happy Pairer, like a pencil pairer. So I do need to dust off a lot of my pencils because I haven't used them enough. But there's some fantastic pencils out there, and I just think it's a bit of a dying art. Watches have made a bit of a comeback in terms of unnecessary things that we don't really need when we have a phone in our pocket. But pencils and pens are the same. There's fantastic craftsmanship that goes into them, and they're part of an architect's job. Still today, we still do sketches. There's still the need to make a quick decision on paper. and a pencil or a pen is often the way to do that.
Can you give us a rough estimate? How many pencils and pens do you have? What do you guess?
Probably as many seats there are in Croke Park. No, I'd say a couple of hundred. Yeah.
That's interesting. My son is just recently is a graduate architect,
Okay.
and he loves pencils. Don't ask me, but he's got his favourite ones, and he only uses them. So
I'm sure he does. Yeah,
it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
So can you guess how many he has, roughly?
That he actively uses, or just
No,
in
that
his
he
collection?
has. The passive ones are
I'd say probably
count as well.
100, over 100 anyway. Yeah, yeah.
So that seems to be very common amongst architects to
Yeah,
have
they're-
a great collection of
They
pencils
are.
and pens.
Yeah.
But in fairness, like we've gone so techie in construction in terms of software we use, Revit and CAD. But because it's so developed in terms of decision making, like there's always the need for on site or at the initial stages of a project to just do a quick sketch for the design intent and get it across the line and to visualize it. And you just can't do that with software a lot of the time. It just takes too long. And I think sketching, whether it's on an iPad or with a 2B pencil or a nice biro, will always be important.
And even the Apple Pencil and the iPad
fantastic.
is fantastic.
Oh my God,
But you
it's
still
amazing.
refer back to the.
And I actually sketch more with the iPad because it's just, you're not looking for a bit of paper. It's just there
Yeah, it's handy.
under your arm all day.
Plus multiple surfaces and effects they can have with the Apple.
It's
the
great.
pen,
I actually
right?
got a thing called Paper-like, which you put on your iPad and it creates sort of a paper-like finish. It's very good. Yeah.
And you already mentioned, passionate about access solutions like doorknobs.
Absolutely.
So when you enter a building, can you take us through what's the experience for you?
First thing I look at is door closers,
Okay.
then the hardware, and the door automation. I just love the flexibility and the solutions that we offer, and even that are available on the market. Because for years, door hardware was boring. Now it's a lot electronic, touch-free. The access control solutions and offerings are just really jumping years ahead of its time at the minute, and it's just exciting.
Ladies and gentlemen, you might hear some background noises. They could be construction noises, it could be voices in the background. That's because we're here at Croke Park. The construction workers are doing their job while we are doing ours. So there could be noises and voices in the background because we're all experiencing Croke Park at the same time. Now back to you, gentlemen. The funny thing is, ladies and gentlemen, we had a very brief pre-discussion and we talked about the title and I was like, we're going to talk about seamless buildings, and Séamus' instant reaction was, all buildings have seams. That was he had to correct the
Invisible
subtitle.
seams sometimes, yeah.
And Croke Park is one of the sites of Dublin. Now it is being refurbished and modernized. So how do you think, what difference does it make for people who live in Dublin or nearby, that Croke Park?
It's so
is
historic.
refurbished?
It's so historic, and it's survived so many generations, and it's in the heart of Dublin, and certainly everybody, not even Irish people, even people with Irish ancestry, just love the whole history behind Croke Park and wanted to be here for generations to come.
How old were you when you came here first?
My first
The
time,
first time.
I was in the 70s, and Dublin were on a winning streak. So I remember my father used to travel everywhere to see them.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we were brought up here as children, really. yeah. With the crepe paper hats, do you remember them? No, you don't remember them? No. And then on a rainy day, they wouldn't last long. Yeah. But no, fantastic memories.
So, well, how old were you when you came your first time?
Oh, I can't remember. Probably, I'd say 7 or 8, 8 or 9.
So pretty young as well.
Yeah, and it's a real institution. It is a great day out for the entire country, because the nature of the GAA is there's such pride at a county level, and people travel to Croke Park. It's a big Irish institution, and I think the works today, like in terms of modernizing, I think there's always a need to modernize. Like even the room we're in today, it's great that there is so many uses for a building like this. And it's not dissimilar to the work that we're doing in the RDS, in that, you know, a stadium is a stadium, but a lot of the time the space beneath the stands, to use those on off days is very important for the viability of the stadium. Keep that, keep it active, and keep people using the space when there's not a match.
So recently, Croke Park is being refurbished and modernized. I'd like to have a look with both of you to new things. So can you share an example where design and access merged in a way that it created something new? It could be a recent one or from the further past. You decide.
Well, I know, for example, a year or two ago, we did an upgrade in the Aviva Stadium. So it's an Irish stadium where it plays soccer and rugby.
Yeah.
And there was an old access control system for allowing people and controlling people in and out of the building.
What does old access system look like? Like you need a paper ticket or something?
Probably was actually paper tickets, yeah. So now we've upgraded with a dormakaba solution. So it's electronic. So all the access points into the building has been modernised. So it's one example. Yeah.
I suppose from my perspective, I don't think architecture should be seamless, but I think access control should probably be seamless. and you know, from my background, a lot of it would be offices, and modern offices, maybe more likely than in the past number of years, have various tenants. So there's that increased sort of crossover going on between shared reception spaces, staff welfare, bike parking, car parking, and really staff just want the most seamless way to get from the front door up to their desk that's also secure without various touch points. You know, it's about sort of common sense and taking the complexity away from the end user and making it just work from turnstile, past desk, into lifts, onto their floor, and really just trying to simplify that process.
How has that changed your architectural work in the recent years?
Well, a few things have changed, but I suppose to start with, the big change has actually been the space allocation from net internal area, which would be the office tenant space, to landlord space. So historically, when I say historically, I mean 10 years ago, landlord space would be a reception desk and lift lobbies and things like that. Now we're seeing, you know, collaboration streets, business lounge, various points of access to the building. So there's a lot more space that's given over to the landlord, and there's a lot more, I suppose, opportunities to manage access control through that space. So it's not without challenges, but it means there's this sort of middle ground where there might be a semi-public front of house, and then the office users need to go through that to get to their net internal area, which is their office.
And Ian, from the dormakaba side, how do you help make these plannings and designs possible?
Yeah, so it's simple, really. We meet with the client, with the architect, find out exactly what issues you've had in the past, you know, what way you want the building to work. And it's really important that the users don't see it as a chore, that they have to go into a building and then they have to try and make their way to wherever they want to go. It has to be, I said the word again, seamless. But again, if you're not worried, if you're not concerned about the issues getting in and out, then that means the specification has worked. So you don't know that, oh my God, the automatic door wasn't working correctly, or you know the key card wasn't working, or your phone wasn't working for access. It's important that it all works.
I think, like, when we talk about, you know, that journey for staff, that's one thing that I think is very important. The other thing, very selfishly from an architect's perspective, is we don't want, you know, a nice turnstile and a lift, and then day two having to say, oh no, they don't talk to each other. Yeah. We need to plonk on a card reader or whatever it is. So it's sort of ensuring that the software and the systems will work with each other and create that journey from start to finish without unexpected surprises.
That reminds me of that phenomenon that you have. Maybe you ever heard that as well. When you finish off work and then you get into your car or whatever way you commute, and then you get back home and you don't remember anything that happened from you leaving the office building until you return home, because it's just so seamless and smooth and everything. Yeah. That's kind of like the experience that I imagine when I hear you talk. Like, you get into the building and up until when you end up at your seat, It was smooth. Maybe you grabbed
Sort of
Good way.
a
autopilot.
drink.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
In another episode of the Dublin special, I talked to another expert and we talked about the topic of sustainability and how that alters daily work or planning work, architectural work. How does the topic of sustainability change your work?
Well, for me personally, with dormakaba, we have like all our products, they're at the foremost of our thoughts. Sustainability, products, solutions. Yes, we have to, as a global company, we have to try and lead the way.
For me, it's common sense, to be honest. It's I think we all know about the accreditation available for buildings that call those buildings sustainable. I think it's bigger than that. You know, when we look at a building like this, it's actually very easy to knock down a building and build a new one.
Oh, okay.
The tricky thing to do from a designer's perspective and a contractor's perspective is to successfully refurbish it. It's the right thing to do in terms of carbon, in terms of cost, often in terms of speed. So a lot of the sustainability that we would focus on would be at a very early stage, we'd call feasibility stage, and we'd look at the viability of keeping a building, maybe extending a floor, maybe paring back, but keeping as much of the structure as possible. So it's inherent in everything we do, and it's more than the badge at the end when the building opens. And I think the industry is moving that way. It has in other countries. We're seeing it's almost like sustainability, you know, it's a really big word and nobody really knows what it means. And it's become ingrained in everything we do. And it's no longer an add-on or a nice to have. It just sort of has to be that way. So you'd be surprised if anybody said they weren't interested in sustainability. I think it's just the norm.
Yeah, because early on, like a couple of years ago, it was nearly like a box-ticking exercise. But I think now a lot more people are taking it more.
I think they have to, don't they? Yeah, but like at an EU level and taxonomy, it's coming down to affect all businesses and the construction industry. Importantly, you know, we have a lot to answer for. We're a big contributor to carbon, and we have a responsibility as designers to make sure the right decisions are made at an early stage, in particular, in terms of doing the best for the building and the environment.
And when it comes to sustainability, is there a building, it could be a stadium, it could be any other kind of venue that comes to your mind that you have visited or entered and you were like, sustainability-wise, by the solution that they found, that's a great role model. Is there a building that comes to your mind?
I think Séamus might be better placed to answer that one.
Well, I'm trying to think, like, okay, I suppose for me, look at George in Dublin, you know, those buildings were built by a developer, and they were sort of copy and paste a lot of the time. There was rows of houses. A lot of those houses became apartments, they became offices, they went back to houses, they went back to flats. They're inherently flexible, and I think sustainability and flexibility go hand in hand, because if you can't design a building that is flexible for alternative uses, it's more likely to be demolished in the future. So what does a modern version of that look like? I think it means understanding the key skeleton and the bones of a building. We look at structural grids, you know, a 9 by 9 meter structural grid. 2 of those can create an office floor plate, but it can also create, you know, apartments on either side. So there's certain very simple sort of common sense approach to design at an early stage that allows for that flexibility from use. Now, we don't know what use will be in demand in 100 years' time. You know, it might be a new form of data center, maybe offices will be different, who knows, but it'll definitely be different. And all we can really do, we know that people like daylight and air, so we need decent floor to floors. One of the main reasons why we demolish buildings in Dublin is because of insufficient head height. So we, you know, this room, we have 2.7 meters floor to floor. That allows enough daylight in, enough air. So there's certain things we can do. Sufficient floor to floor and regular grid spacings that can be altered in the future.
So you mentioned future already, and you are also, you lead the Public Affairs Committee at the RAIA.
Yeah, the Royal Institute of Architects Ireland have an Architecture and Public Affairs Committee. And
you lead that.
I'm the chairperson of that.
You're
committee.
the chairperson. Yeah. So from your point of view, what do architects in Ireland need to shape the future?
Architecture in Ireland needs to highlight, we need to highlight our value in delivering infrastructure and larger scale projects. So again, as I mentioned earlier, there is a preconception about architects providing nice homes historically for wealthier people. Architects provide homes for everybody. We provide infrastructure, bridges, a stadium like we're in today, schools. Architecture is everywhere, and a little bit of architecture within these larger infrastructural projects will have a huge impact on the longevity of it, and I suppose what it means for people who are using the space. So I'd be keen to, encourage the public to engage with architecture. It's our built environment. There are buildings, and they're the important buildings that will stand the test of time if people, I suppose, buy into them. We all use architecture every day, and it's not elitist. It's not the fancy houses that we see on TV. It's everything. I just think Croke Park is such a fantastic example. It doesn't need to be showy. It just needs to be sensible, well designed, and people will use it.
Ian, how can dormakaba support architects in building a vision like that?
With sustainable products, sustainable solutions, listening to the architects, listening to the clients, how to make buildings accessible, which is really important. But again, as you say, Séamus, about the mixed use of buildings and then into the future to future-proof them. So it's really
because
important.
Uses change so quickly, and you see it as well, Ian. Like you'll have
Even when a building is handed over.
exactly, and a new tenant has a different requirement. So it's that constant need to be flexible. From architecture when you're supplying whatever it is, there's just you always need to flex with users who change weekly. It feels, yeah.
And it's so interesting what you said about Georgian houses, because they're there hundreds of years, and absolutely, like if it's apartments, offices, hotels, even, it's and that's their secret. That's why they're there.
It's hard to see how we, if we're doing that currently, and I don't think we are, to be honest. I don't think we're providing pure flexible buildings, but I think probably the worst vintage of building in Dublin is the 1970s and 1980s offices. Poorly built, low floor to ceiling. Technically on plan, we can change them into apartments, but it's just not working. The concrete is spalling. There's not enough daylight getting in for apartments. So we're seeing now buildings that are 40 and 50 years old that really do need to be demolished, which is a shame, but that's the nature of it. And then on the other hand, we have fantastic Georgian structures that are still going, well loved and flexible.
Was the reason for that kind of architecture that they wanted to make it efficient, height efficient, or was it people just didn't consider how important daylight would be for the inhabitants?
Well, I don't know. There's probably a few reasons. I'm sure costs were part of it as well. And I suppose also sort of tenant expectation. So by that, I mean what an office user expects from their office. Today, occupiers want the best in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of enticing staff back to the office. It was very different 30, 40, 50 years ago when everybody just went to the office. And I think there was less pressure on sustainability, build quality, and also flexibility. It was also a stage in our history where we were demolishing a lot of Georgian architecture. So they're not the best built buildings, and they're just not the most flexible. And I'm sure there's a myriad of reasons why they are that way.
And we can hopefully learn a lot from that. So
Don't do it again.
so that is a learning.
Simple.
But just don't do it again. And Ian, when you look into the future of buildings, what is it that you're looking forward to?
For me, really, accessibility into buildings. So making buildings easy for all, access for everybody, and it's just a seamless experience for everybody.
Are you thinking of like office buildings or stadiums or other public venues?
So
everything.
Everything. Every building has to be, treated the same, I think.
I'd love to see that too. And I think we're still at the stage where a Part M accessible toilet is seen as you have to provide this. There's still a lot of sort of people scoffing at the need to provide a fully accessible building. But it's not just accessible for 5%, it's accessible for everybody. Like subtitles were designed for people who couldn't hear, but now everybody looks at subtitles on their phone when they're scrolling through Instagram. There's loads of good examples of how accessible design helps everybody. And if we can just integrate that into the thinking of how we design buildings, it is happening in fairness, but there's a lot more. There's a lot beyond Part M, which is the code that governs accessibility. that helps us design. Even neurodiversity is an area that we'd work quite a bit in terms of our fit out. It doesn't cost a lot, it's very simple, and it's just looking at acoustics and colour and creating sensible layouts within that space. So it can be done, and it's not that expensive, and we should be doing more of it.
Thank God for architects. Eh?
Aren't they a fantastic kind of breed? And if you think, I mean, you know the area around very well. If there was one building or a building complex that you could redo, equip it with whatever hardware solutions come to your mind, redesign, refurbish it, what building would you like to redo and create smooth and seamless access with?
Unfortunately, a lot of feasibility studies that we do where we look to change the use of a building isn't that easy. It's quite easy in terms of design, put an apartment in an office. What tends to happen is that it just doesn't stack up. I'm not a developer, I'm not a client. It costs too much money to put apartments into existing offices in the city centre in Dublin. Something fundamental needs to change, but I'd love for that vintage of 1970s and 1980s offices to start being successfully converted into residential use in the next couple of years ahead.
So when you think back of passionate projects that you were a part of, what are the projects that come to your mind?
Okay, so I love working with older buildings, and typically in Dublin that would be a Georgian building or a building that's 100 years old, but we have a very interesting project at the moment that is being refurbished because it's an old office, but it's only about 15 years old. So Grand Canal Square is an office building in Dublin, and the reason for this change is because office users and occupants of offices are changing. So they're smaller tenants, they're not the big super tenant. They are requiring more sort of building amenities. So that means we have a bicycle ramp down into the basement, we have showers, we have a business lounge, collaboration street. So really we're future-proofing that office building for multiple tenants and what tenants will want in the next number of years. So it's a lot of work. The interesting thing is at the beginning, one of the first sort of decisions we've made in terms of sustainability was to actually keep everything that works. So the facade is perfect, structure is perfect, everything we're doing is internal, in the basement, planting. There's a big discussion about this part of Dublin where, we had flood defence systems, and what that does is it turns its back on people walking down the street. So we have a sort of a clever system of planter beds and demountable flood defence, which means you get that activity without losing any flood defence.
That sounds like a building that used to be for a specific group of tenants. Interesting. You turn it, you make it interesting for a various group of tenants. Like it could be like turning it into a multi-purpose.
Yeah, and I think it's good for the city and it's good for the tenants as well. It creates a little bit more activity and it just opens it up. It was a very inward-looking building previously that gave nothing back to the street, and now it will. Now that project's only just starting on site, so hopefully we'll see that in the next year or two.
So roughly a year or two is going to take until it's finished?
About 18 months, yeah.
Okay. What building, what experience of a venue is still on your bucket list that you have not yet visited?
For me, I'm going to Bilbao shortly in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Dying to see the Guggenheim Museum and just experience the architecture.
Yeah.
I will be looking at door closers and door hardware as well. But yeah, looking forward to that.
Bilbao, and what about you? What's still on your bucket list?
I've been to Japan about 10 years ago and I absolutely loved it. I was there just for 5 days and I'd love to go back. The infrastructure, the transport, the buildings, the quality of the buildings. And it's not the fancy buildings, it's the simple buildings. The detailing is just so good. Everything is just well done. And I'd love to go back and see more.
And funny on that, my son is a recently he's a graduate architect, and he's gone to Japan for a couple of months, simply exactly for that reason.
Yeah.
The buildings, the architecture, the simpleness. Absolutely.
I have a feeling your son and you should meet.
I think so.
You start talking about pens.
They've got the pencils as well. Yeah.
Bragging off with their collections of pencils and pens that they have. That's going to be another episode. I guess.
Dedicated to pencils.
To pencils. Ladies and gentlemen, whether you are into pens, pencils, stadiums, or seamless access, this was our second episode of the special Dublin edition of Because It Matters. Thank you very much for being our guest. Thank you, Séamus. Thank you, Ian,
Thanks
for being
very much.
here with me.
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and see you in our next episode of Because It Matters.
That was Because It Matters, a dormakaba podcast. New episodes every month wherever you can listen to a podcast and on dormakaba.com.